Okay, so this is the story of why my engine cover slash sunpad on the Larson 2008 Senza 206 failed, or the hinges failed last summer, and what I'm doing about it. And it's a pretty interesting little failure analysis here. So this is the cover. I'll include a picture so you can see what it really looks like and get an idea of what I'm working on. I've got it upside down here on the workbench. And so getting it off the boat was a bear thing. It's very heavy, so it takes at least a couple folks to wrestle it off of there. So I originally looked at it and said, okay, looks like the screws here on the hinge ripped out of the wood. So seems pretty obvious. You got the original piece of wood here that I've cut out, but I'll talk about that in a second. These screws came out of there. Said, okay, that's normal wood. Screws pull out of wood over time. Eventually, that's what happens. But if you look deeper at it, what I did is I cut this piece out, took these hinges off the rest of the way, took them off the back of the boat where they hinge, cut this piece out, found that on the back of this original piece, there's actually T-nuts that hold the bolts in place. So a T-nut looks like this originally, or a nice shiny new one looks like this, and this is the back of it. So there's these 3 T-nuts on each side. There's 2 hinges, on each side here. And taking this apart, I discovered these T-nuts that I had actually rotted out. So if you look at the back of them, you can see that those holes are nice and wide, that there aren't really any thread marks at all, because they're, the screw is, the bolt is screwed into the T-nut and those threads there, so it doesn't really touch the wood at all. The wood is held by these teeth on the back of the T-nuts. So looking at the screws, it's interesting that you think, okay, take a quick glance at it. When I was looking at it outside, I said, okay, that's just wood embedded in those screws and it's all rotted out, and away you go, no problem. But that's really not what that is. What that is attached to those screws is the original metal of the T-nut. So that is metal corroded onto the original screw in the hinge. So what has happened, if you look at it, this is treated plywood. This original surface that was in here is pleated plywood. So my theory is, I think it's a good one, is that the chemicals in the plywood that have gone into the weatherproofing treatment of it have actually interacted chemically with these probably originally pretty cheap T-nuts. You can get these just plain zinc. You can get them galvanized. You can also get stainless steel ones. My belief certainly that the original ones here were not stainless steel. This hardware is stainless steel. It's nice quality. It's 8-9 years old now. The screws here underneath that junk on top of them are still very solid, very nice. So this is all solid stainless steel hardware. The T-nuts that they put on the back of it, I believe, are definitely not solid steel quality hardware. So they've used cheap hardware components on the backside where no one will ever see it until you have to go to repair it and it fails. It took about 8 years to fail. My boat's at 2008. It failed in the summer of 2016, so nice even number there. And what I'm going to have to do to repair this is get the best quality T-nuts I can find. These ones, I have a little pack of them. They're probably the cheap ones that correspond to the original equipment here. I'll get better ones. Maybe I'll get galvanized ones. I know those are available down at the Lowe's. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to have to either get new screws here or take this old metal off here and reuse these existing stainless steel ones. So how I've repaired this is I took a router and basically cut this out around here, and then I have taken a router again and using a little pattern that I'll show you. I first cut out a little template here used from a router, cut out this inner hole for the full depth, and then the plan is for the bigger hole to create a shelf for inserting a piece of wood here to have a lot of glue surface area. So that's how you repair wood, having a lot of glue surface area. And then I have made that replacement piece of wood, again just using a router and a table saw, and form fit this in here such that this now slides in nicely and repairs that place in the wood. And what I'll do, of course, is drill holes, Pop those 3 new T-nuts in the back of this, and glue all this up using, I don't know, Gorilla Glue or just wood glue or something, and then the whole thing will be good as new, and I'll restaple all this upholstery back around it, and it'll be good as new. So that's the plan. That's the failure analysis, is that this little cheap piece of hidden hardware caused a great deal of work by me to repair it, but the whole thing is in good shape otherwise. And that's the story.